Welcome to SOULJOURNS and an interview with Sai Baba follower Al Drucker. Drucker lived at Sai Baba's ashram in Puttaparthi, India for 10 years. A former physicist, pilot, and naturopath, Drucker has written and talked extensively about Eastern spirituality and Sai Baba. This interview was recorded in Grants Pass, Oregon in July 2003.
Al Drucker, thanks a whole lot for agreeing to do this and to sit still while other people pick away at you lovingly. Can I begin by asking you, for those who are brand new here to Sai Baba, and there are several people, for you to give us your gut feeling answer to the question of who is Sai Baba?
Sai Baba is myself. Sai Baba is my true self. I have no other identity than that. One time I was arrested in India. This is a long answer to a short question. I was arrested in India on the day that I was to become an Indian citizen and naturalize in India. And they arrested me because it was alleged that I was a CIA agent. And when I refused to go with the constable who arrested me and said, I have to first see Sai Baba, he agreed to that. And I went to see Swami, and Swami very graciously talked to me. And when he asked me what's happening, and I said, Swami, they're saying I'm a CIA agent, he said, you are CIA. You are CIA. I said, no, Swami, I have nothing to do with the CIA. Yes, you do. You are CIA. You are constant, integrated awareness. You are pure awareness. You are constant, ever unchanging, and you are totally integrated and included in me. That is who I am. That is what you can say you are, and that is Sai Baba. He has come at the end of this yuga for no other purpose but to reveal the truth of who I am. That I am is not this Al Drucker sitting in front of you. That I am is the I am that spoke out of the burning bush to Moses and said, I am that am. That is the pure aham, the pure subjective, with no regard for anything else that could be thought of as objective. There is only that I am, and that is Sai Baba, and that I am.
Who was the Al Drucker of 20 to 40 years ago before you became this I am?
A meaningless idea in my mind that I chose to buy into that no longer works for me. Meaningless. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Baba wants us to know that we are God, as you've said now 10 times this morning along. Does this mean we no longer pray?
You can't help but pray. Every breath is a prayer. You know, in both Sanskrit and in Hebrew, in both holy languages, the same word is used. Ruach, HaKodesh. Ruach, which is the Hebrew word for it, both means energy. It means life. It means vitality. And it means holiness. And it means prana. It means the power of God. That is the constant prayer that is happening all the time. You begin to recognize that your life itself is a prayer. You don't pray for things. You don't pray even to... all you pray for is for the continuous awareness of that CIA, of that constant integrated oneness with the unity. And that is my life, and that is your life. Whether you know it or not, why not know it? I tell you it is, so be it. be it now. Dust if you think, dust you are. God if you think, God you are. You are not dust. You are not the body. You are God.
This may seem like a pretty silly question in light of what you just said. Since you are Sai Baba...
No, don't do it like that.
Okay. Do you get to see...
Don't do it like that.
Do you get to see or feel or...
Excuse me, I once have to say. Once I said to Swami, said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Swami, I am one with you. I am Baba." He said, "Oh, that is very, very good. Okay, now you go out and give darshan."
And you did. The question is, do you get to see or feel or hear intuitively or in your heart or in your ears Sai Baba much?
Well, it's, I don't know how to say this. It's not a voice that I hear, but it is a constant dialogue that I have. I just constantly talk to him inside. And it's not that I hear a voice responding. It's just that it's just I'm just always talking to him. Swami, I just share my perceptions with him. And so he's very much in my mind. If there is something to be done, I would generally ask him. I think always ask him first. I can honestly say that for probably 30 years I have not made any decisions on my own. Not a single decision. Yeah. And sometimes I'm not sure what his will is, because I still see myself as outside of him. I fall into that all the time. It doesn't last very long, but it does happen. And so I'm a little bit confused as to what is your will, and I don't hear a voice. And when my buddhi is not awake at that moment, when there's not that intuitive knowing, then I will use the chits. And he's given that, and that's a good thing to know about. And shall I just pass it on to you for a moment? He said, if you want to assess my will and you're not sure, then here's what you do. Take 2 little pieces of paper or little pieces of cardboard or buttons or 2 little stones, something that you feel you can assign some holiness to, and write on it, on one of them yes, on the other one no, and on the back side put an om. So yes om and no om. Okay? And then sit in front of the altar, come to your little inner sanctum of holiness, in the field that you're in the place that you're in your home preferably, and just still your mind. And then in your mind evoke my presence, my image, and then ask the question in a way that I can answer with a yes and no. And then just use your chits and throw them. And I will give you an answer. This is a red phone that you have, and it's a direct line to me. And I will always give you the right answer, but don't test me. If you don't like the answer, don't try it again. So now, just think about that a moment. I'm sorry to take up more time here, but think about that a moment. This says you can get a yes om, you can get a no om, you can get an om, and you can get a yes no. There are 4 possibilities. We generally ask a question in such a way that we want a yes answer. Well, our statistical probabilities have just gotten down to 25% of getting that answer that we generally want. And so just trust that the divinity will give you the right answer. And so a yes om is a yes, a no om is a no. Mm-hmm. A yes no is, this is not my business. This question is not my business. You go do what you do, but I will not guide you in this one. And an om is wait. And so wait means wait. And you don't immediately ask again. You wait and that is also an answer. And you will see it happening.
For those of us who don't have stones or run out of stones or forget to use the stones or the buttons, and this is sort of related, in fact it's very much related, how do we discern between the will of God and our own ego or desire?
See, let me, of course I will answer as best as I can, but let me just go back to the stones a moment. When I heard that about these chits, at that time I was doing the once a week talks at the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. The whole university gets together in the morning at the beginning of the school day, and we sing the Om Tat Sat Shri Narayana to the many names of God as given by Mahatma Gandhi. It's his song, and it's done all over India. And then one of the teachers will talk about the 5 great religions, and we'll give some quotes and some little discussion from the religions. And I was given the one to do of the Torah and the Jewish religion, what we know as the Old Testament. And it's at that time that I heard about these chits that I read about it's even given in Exodus, where it is said that the high priest will wear a little pouch on the front with 12 stones representing the 12 tribes, or the 12 rays, you might say. And in that pouch are 2 stones called the Urim and the Thummim. And those stones will always be used to assess the will of God. And so when there is a question as to what the people should do, the high priest will pose that question in the inner sanctum, and these stones will tell him. So here was just as we just heard a little bit of the Old Testament, a validation, a confirmation of Swami is still teaching us the same ancient wisdom. It never really changes, whether it be from the Old Testament or from any other mystical religion, and where great beings have come into their own truth. All right, so how do we know that we are following the will of God? And what Swami says is everyone has a conscience. You know what is right and you know what is not right. You will know it by how you feel. You will know if you feel some guilt, or if you feel some fear, or if you feel anything other than great peace and happiness. If that's what you feel, you can be sure it is not my will. And if you feel just an inner sense of serenity and wholeness, know that that is my will.
Mm-hmm. Good question here.
That's very easy to come to if you just pay attention to it. Again, CIA.
Somebody here wants to know, when were you first aware of the existence of God?
Well, when I was a little boy, this was in the time before Hitler. This is before 1933 and before Hitler came to power. At that time, the great German hero was Field Marshal von Hindenburg. And in Germany we have a carnival every year, and people dress up in various clothes and they have a good time at the carnival. A lot of kids get conceived during carnival time. And they dressed me up as a field marshal, a little kid, little 4-year-old, dressed up as a field marshal. Everybody would come up to me and said, "Zum Befehl, Herr Feldmarschall." And I heard a voice, it is unmistakable, I heard it then, it has never left me, and it said, "No, you are not a field marshal, you're a prince." And I said, "I am a prince." A prince is one who knows and already has his kingdom, who you can throw into the gutter, you can say anything to and do anything to, and he will never lose his royalty. He's a prince, and he's the son of his father. And I knew that from that time, and it has never left me. All the times in Germany and all the difficult times this body has gone through in its life, it always underneath has been this absolute certainty that I was a child of God, and that nothing could ever happen to me. And I would strongly suggest to you to repossess your princedom and know that you're a prince or a princess, or that you are royalty itself. You are the Holy One. You are the one that has been chosen. You have been chosen because you are one with God. Whatever else you've ever thought, and whatever littleness that you have assigned to yourself, has been an arrogance on your part to keep yourself separate. And that day is done. None of the disguises are going to work ever again. You're only going to trip up and trip up and trip up until you get the lesson that none of that works. You are not this body. You are not this mind that has allied itself with an ego. You are not in this world. You are an alien here. There is no place for you to rest here. Go home, because you are already home. Just realize it.
Baba says this is a dream. The Course in Miracles says this is an illusion. How are we to know what our home is, what is real?
Trust in Swami. If Swami calls, when Swami speaks, when he starts a discourse, he doesn't say, my dear merchants and housewives. He calls you Divyatma Swarupalara. He calls you Prema Swarupalara. He says you are the very embodiment of the divine love, of the divine Atma. Who are you going to believe? Your little experiences, your little mind, your little voice that tells you I'm just this little insignificant one in a world that's impacting on me? Or are you going to believe Swami? What good is Swami if you don't believe him? What good are his words if you don't trust that he knows, and he knows better than I know? I don't know anything. Of myself I am nothing. Of my truth I am everything. That's the key. Trust. I mean, the first thing, of course, is you have to believe in him. He says, I will give you what you want so that you will want what I have to give you. What I have to give you is that, is the glorious portal to your liberation. And it is available to you, and it is available so easily. All you have to do is say, help, show me, and he will show you. But you have to trust that what he shows you is true.
A questioner wants to know, is consciousness all there is?
Prajnanam Brahma. The great Mahavakyas, the great sayings of the Upanishads. Aham Brahmasmi. Tat Tvam Asi. I am Atma Brahman. One of those great sayings is Prajnanam Brahma. Consciousness, awareness, the CIA, is all there is. That is all there ever is. I spoke yesterday of a time when I left this body. I can't even say I left this body because there was no I really in that consciousness. It was just pure consciousness. And that consciousness had, in retrospect, looking at it, had the characteristics of the pure witness. It's called the Sakshi in Sanskrit. Pure witness, just watching, no investment of any kind, and yet total awareness of all. That witness is the witness of these 5 sheaths. That is what is meant by Tat Tvam Asi. That thou art. Thou, who you are, is that witness of all things. That Tat is the Satchidananda, is not the Nama and Rupa, the name and form that covers it and veils it and hides it from our seeing. We see the names and forms and we think that this is what has some power and reality. But none of this has any reality. God itself, which is all that really...
For those who haven't been blessed with the experiences that you've had, you've been kicked in the pants by Baba many times in wonderful, miraculous ways, life-saving ways, yet they're still on a spiritual path and want to grow their path without experiences like yours. How do they do it?
Everyone has experiences. You couldn't have made it to here. Every moment. How many times have you driven down the highway? What about that truck that was heading for you? When the mind of that truck driver just got sleepy for a moment. Who saved you at that moment? How many thousands of opportunities have there been where you've been saved and you've been held in the divine arms? Everything is a gift. Nothing can possibly happen to you that is not in your best interest. Nothing. All things are echoes of the voice for God. That's one of the lessons in the Course in Miracles, Swami's Course in Miracles. Everything is a gift. You have nothing to do but to be grateful. I mean, language becomes very, very simple. It just becomes yes. Yes, thanks, wow. That's about all you ever need to continue on through life. You're not having to do anything. You need do nothing. It is all given to you. It is given to you, and it is being done through you. And so, yes, I've been blessed with many experiences, but some experiences I haven't spoken of, such as, for instance, being thrown out of the ashram. That's an important experience. That's one of the greatest blessings that's ever happened to me. By far the greatest blessing that's ever happened to me in my limited consciousness. But at the time it was a total devastation. Everything is a gift. Accept it all. Don't return to the weakness of feeling some guilt about what you've done. There is no guilt. There is no human being in truth. There is only God. I am not this body. I am one with my Father. Just hold on to that idea. Face the light. Put the shadow behind you. The shadow is not my business. It is the shadow of this body. That body itself is part of the shadow. That is not my business. My business is God. Just face the light. And that light, as it rises, even the shadow will disappear at my feet.
Al Drucker, you're 75 pushing 80. From where do you get your boundless passion for life and energy?
Thank you. That's a sweet question. All I can say is I love you. Thank you. Yes.
When you came back into the body after your liver cancer death, one person wants to know, was the absence of suffering along with physical pain related to being free of the emotional body?
No. The emotional body was very much present. But it was present, it no longer governed me. It no longer directed what I thought and was and felt and abided in, you might say. And so the emotional body was very strong, and I'd get caught in for moments, but golly, it just lasts so little. You know, they say that it's like riding in the sand underwater. It doesn't last very long, whereas before, it's like writing in stone, you know, inscribed deep in the stone. Nothing lasts very long anymore. And I can absolutely trust that the return to wholeness will always come. Om Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya. Purnameva, that's all there is, Eva. That's all there is. It will always return, and it will return for you as well. In fact, there is no difference. Please.
Do you have...
I have to get off my high horse here. Ask me a down-low question.
Do you have any words to assist people who are suffering from long-term physical pain? And I might add those who are also on the receiving end of prognoses that we all have, but they're aware of a more imminent fate than many of us are.
Well, I was suffering from a pretty serious prognosis. The suffering I was suffering from when I went to Swami was the knowledge that at any moment, night or day, given, I would say, no more than 15 minutes, upwards of 5,000 nuclear weapons might be in the air. Any moment, night or day. It could happen with a computer glitch. There was actually no way, to my knowledge, as we knew it at that time, that we could prevent that. That's a pretty serious prognosis. And so what did Swami say to me? He said, forget the world. The world is not your business, sir. This is just more world. Don't get caught up in it. It is your arrogance that gets caught up in it. It's not your humility that gets caught up in it. It is a way. Death is an idea made up by the mind to maintain its separation. If you die and somebody else doesn't die, it makes you different, doesn't it? Or if he dies and I don't die, it makes you different. Anything to fortify this long-standing rut through thousands of lives of being special. There is no specialness. Even Swami is not special. Forgive me for saying so, but there is nothing special anywhere. All there is exactly the same. And that sameness is the pure love of God. That's all there is. As I said the other day, there are no objects anywhere. Nothing is an object, including God. You can't speak of it as a he or a she or an it. It is a verb. It is a river of love flowing out into more and more of itself and ever remaining itself. That is my nature. That is my truth. Hold on to that. And everything will be taken care of. This body will be used for what it will be used, and when it's time to set it aside, it's just a vehicle. You came here in a vehicle. You set it outside in the parking lot, and you're here. You don't have to worry about that thing. Don't be concerned about it. Everything will be given, including what is given to take care of these bodies. It is not about these bodies. It is about the doctor that needs to hear the message of love. And that message may be a silent message of just your equanimity in the face of what might scare anyone else. Just go home in God and hold on to that.
My guess is this question written by somebody among us is something a lot of us can relate to. Do you have any words of wisdom for those of us recovering rescuers who do too much seva without discrimination and need to spend more time discovering Atma?
Yes. I changed my training from my engineering and physics background. I was part of a small group of technical people in a secret organization that had the responsibility for all the ballistic missile programs in the U.S. arsenal, including all the nuclear weapons. We were just a very small group, and we were constantly on the go. It was clear to me that that was not to be my life. And so I shifted, and I shifted to become a healer. I studied medicine, and I studied acupuncture, and I studied a number of different systems. And I was doing a lot of treatment of people, and I found myself getting more and more sick. And then one time when I went to Swami, he said, "You are too sensitive now. You stop doing treatments, and you become a teacher. You teach." And so from that point on, I was doing teaching. And many doctors came into our programs. This was at Esalen Institute, and others as well. And then one day in India, a good friend who was a well-known person at that time, Gregory Bateson, some of you may have heard of him. Bateson was the husband of the great anthropologist Margaret Mead, and when she died, he remarried, and his new wife, Lois, became a Sai devotee and went off to India and left Gregory behind. And Gregory didn't like being left behind. And so he would come along, and he was an anthropologist, and so he would study the natives in India. He'd come to Darshan and sit in his little stool in the back and do his naturalist thing. And Swami loved him and came up to him many times. And how is the professor today? And how is the professor doing? Excuse me, I'll try to shorten the story. And one fine day, Swami called him and a number of us in for an interview. And Gregory was so excited because he couldn't manage with all these devotees who just kept talking about God and singing their bhajans. And he was a serious type. You know, he wanted to... his father was a famous Don from Cambridge University in India. And he was an intellectual. He was a great intellectual. And so he wanted to engage Swami in intellectual talk, but something with good meaning. So he was part of the University of... he was in the University of California, and he was part of the Regents of the university. And the Regents was responsible for all the nuclear weapons in the U.S. arsenal. The Regents had a yearly budget of $35 billion. And he wanted to get out of that. And so he wanted to engage Swami and ask him about how, if Swami agreed. And Swami wouldn't have any of it. He didn't engage with... when Swami called him in, all Swami asked him, and how is your health, sir? And Gregory said, my health is very good, sir, and how is yours? And then when Swami asked him some other silly questions, Gregory just left the interview room and said, thank you very much. And he came out sort of storming. He said, you can't hold a decent conversation with a holy man. And he took off for California, where he had a regents meeting, a New Year's Day regents meeting, and he left his wife and child there in India. Is it okay to tell a story?
Go ahead.
Gregory got very sick on the flight to America. They took him off the plane and with an ambulance and took him to the University Hospital in Berkeley. And there they discovered, when they did an X-ray, a huge carcinoma on his aorta, and there was almost no chance that they could save him. But they did an exploratory surgery and just opened up that thoracic wall all the way up. And they found that the cancer was actually on the aorta. It was not even on the lung where they originally thought it might be. And it was simply not operable. And so they sewed him up and gave him 2 or 3 weeks to live. And word was sent to his wife in India. And she immediately came home. But now, after Swami gave an interview to Gregory, he called me in. And he said, do you know that old man, that professor who was just here? I said, yes, Swami, I'm a friend of the family. I brought them to Swami. He said, that man is very sick. He will die, but Swami will save him. You go and nurse him. You nurse him. I said, Swami, you told me not to do treatments anymore. No, it is all right. You nurse him. And the short of it is, I mean, it's quite a story, but the short of it is that I took on Gregory's cancer and died instead of Gregory. Every day I would go and see him. I brought him to our place at Esalen Institute, and there every day, he almost died on the way there, and in the most remarkable way, he came back to life because we found a remedy, and it was a homeopathic remedy. And I would sit in the sands at that time, outside the Nilium in India, and I would study the rare and unusual homeopathic remedies. There are some 100 or so, what do they call the bell? I've even forgotten. I haven't used all this for so long. No. They're the important remedies. And then there's some 2,000 or 3,000 very rare remedies. You can't even find them in most homeopathic pharmacies. But I would study them. And I remember studying one of the remedies. I've forgotten its name. It was a long Latin. They're all Latin names. It's funny that I just don't remember it at the moment. But it's a very strange name. And that remedy was the perfect remedy for Gregory when he was transported up the coast, up the Big Sur coast to Esalen, because he was about dead. He was almost dead. He couldn't keep anything down. He was vomiting a lot of blood, and and it looked like he was finished. And Ornithygallum umbellatum. I remembered that remedy, a very rare remedy, and I called every homeopathic pharmacy in the country. I called every homeopathic pharmacy in the country, and then I called the homeopathic pharmacies in Germany and in England, and nobody had Ornithygallum umbellatum. One of them said that they can make it ready, but it would take about 10 days. And Gregory had hours, literally, to live. And I had a friend who was an herbalist, and he became a very famous herbalist. And I said, Michael Tierra, I said, Michael, do you have any idea if Ornithygallum umbellatum is an herb? He said, of course, it's the Star of Bethlehem. It's all over the mountains out here. And this is the time. This is the time when it's in bloom. It's perfect. He said, let's go and get some. And we got some Star of Bethlehem, little tiny flower, beautiful plant. He says, this is Ornithygallum umbellatum. And sure enough, we made a homeopathic remedy and gave it to Gregory, and it was miraculous. I mean, you understand, it was Swami. It was Swami. And like that, every day would do something with him, and I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and this body lost 40 pounds and went off to a cancer place in Mexico to learn a particular therapy, the Gerson therapy, and came home and died. And I was out of my body, and I gave you that little story. And then came back in, and I knew it was all finished, and all I wanted to do was go see Swami. And Swami said, cancer canceled. And Gregory lived on for 4 years, had his most important work. He just totally changed from an irascible old Englishman to a beautiful, lovely, full-spirited human being who loved everyone. He never admitted to loving God, but he clearly saw God everywhere. And he was beautiful. And when it was finally time for him to go, it turned out that the cancer, they took another x-ray in the hospital, and you could have laid one x-ray on top of the other. The cancer had literally been canceled. There was no cancer. He died of some medicines that were given to him that were too strong. But it was time for him to go, and there were devotees around him singing bhajans to him, and it was just a beautiful finish for him. He was done with that body. He was in his 80s, and he was done.
Your spontaneous reaction to two
Forgive me
words.
for these long talks and answers.
Your spontaneous reaction to two words: fear and anger.
Love.
Do you get angry?
You're damn right. I get totally
Go ahead.
pissed. And it lasts for about 30 seconds.
Here's somebody who's totally peeved. So we leave here today and go back to our normal jobs.
Wait, let me say something, though. Really, Swami said The Course in Miracles is his work. He said, this is my highest work, this is the Vedanta for the West. He's given that and signed it a number of times. And in the Course, it makes it very clear that it's always only love or fear. And that fear is what covers love, and fear is non-existent. It is something we make up in order to keep ourselves separate. And so if you want to experience the truth, if you want to experience the love, and this is not the love that is a love for our own, it is the unlimited, unconditional, ever-expanding love of God. That is our truth. If you want to experience that, go into the heart of the fear. You've got to, don't avoid it. Don't avoid these negative feelings, but go right into them. Stand in them in a moment. Don't, you can invite them in, but you don't have to serve them coffee, Swami said. But do let them in for a moment, and just stand still in that, and you will be shown that even the thickest fog can't even hold a button. It can't even hold a little paper airplane. You understand? That all there is love, is the love of God. And we have constructed these artificial clouds and coverings on top of them. Go right into them. Don't avoid them. Go into them, and you'll discover what they hide. And what they hide is the only truth there is.
There might be variations of this question that a lot of us can relate to. So here we leave today and go back to our normal jobs, Al, which are very spiritually and financially unrewarding. How do we, how can we really do all that when the people, the environment, all of it is so negative?
It's negative because you want it that way. Yes, you want it that way. You choose to be the victim so that you can see the victimizer outside of you and thereby maintain your separation. There is nothing unrewarding, there is nothing dark out there except in your mind. There is nothing out there except in your mind. Your mind is all of it. Nothing is going on. Everything, everyone that you picture is in heaven. You're the only one still flailing around, not having gotten the word that you too are already in heaven, home in God, as God. So change your mind. Change your mind about what is. It is the seeing that you see which reflects the wish that you wish, which is to be separate from God because of your fear of the love of God. You're afraid you're going to disappear in it. Disappear in it. Become it. It is you. Don't be afraid of it. There is nothing going on here except your dream. You are the dreamer of this dream, and it is a dream of separation which you have concocted, and it is no longer true, and you will no longer get away with it. None of the disguises will work from this point on. There's only going to be pain and suffering until you realize that it is my pain, my suffering, it's a battle that I have in my own mind against myself. And stop it. What for? What for when Swami is here showing you that there is another way? Love. Just love. Jesus showed us the way too. If they want your cloak, give them your undercloak as well. Give them everything. Just always give love. Your Savior is standing outside of you asking to save you. That Savior is who? I told the story of the what was it the other day? The sweeper. Huh? I told the story of the sweeper, right? Your sweeper is your Savior. The one who is rejecting you is God, showing you that there is something deeper than that, which is only love. Just love. Just love. Don't look for opportunities not to love. Don't look for excuses. You go into doing your work and there nobody seems to have the high-minded belief system that you have, and so you feel like you're in some foreign land, you're not at home. You're at home. You're at home in God. Bring that love. You don't have to start using words of Sai or words of the Vedanta or any of the grandiose thoughts. Just bring your smile. Bring your love. And feel it. I mean, actually feel it. Because you have Swami. What a gift. What an incredible gift has been given. You're in a dream of awakening, and it's just minutes, maybe even just seconds from midnight. It's all going to be over very quickly. There's nothing here for you. Nothing here at all. There's nothing of any value here at all. And yet, when that change gets made in your mind, what are you going to discover? That everything here is God, that there's only God.
A related question. You just said, so change your mind.
Yeah.
Baba has said repeatedly, we have about as much free will as an ass tied to a hitching post. How on earth do we change our mind if we don't have free will?
Sure. A little bit of free will. You have no free will at all. None. But it seems like you do. I'm going to give you an answer, but just hold a moment. See. So, the Mahabharata war is about to start tomorrow. And today, on the field of battle, are arrayed all the armies. The armies on the sides of the Pandavas, the sides of good, the sides of Dharma, and the army on the sides of Adharma. Krishna, you've chosen to become my charioteer. Take me out between the armies and let me see how we have to order our battle tomorrow, Arjuna says. And Krishna takes him, and he takes him too close to the other army where Arjuna can see his beloved grandfather, Bhishma, who he loves more than any other. His father, Pandu, left when the Pandavas were just small children, and they were brought up by the grandfather, Bhishma. And there is Bhishma on the other side. He had to kill Bhishma, and he also knew that Bhishma couldn't be killed. He had a boon from God that he could never be killed. And yet he was such a powerful generalissimo that in charge of the army on the other side, that there was no way this side could ever win. Arjuna's side of righteousness, could ever win. And there he saw Bhishma, his beloved grandfather, on the other side. He had to fight him. He had to try to kill him. He probably would get killed by him. And then he saw Drona, his beloved teacher, his guru, the one who taught him everything, on the other side. And then he saw not only all his cousins, his 100 cousins, the Kauravas, but also many beloved friends on the other side. And he threw down his bow and he said, I cannot fight. And then he turned to Krishna, who was his friend, his bosom buddy. They'd been together for 70 years, always together. They were actually Krishna's sister was Arjuna's wife. They were brothers-in-laws. And he turns to Krishna and he says, for the first time in all these years, he says, Lord, Lord, not buddy. He says, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Please show me. Total surrender to one who is higher, who knows. And then Krishna gives him the Bhagavad Gita there on the battlefield that tomorrow would create so much carnage that by the end of the war, which lasted 18 days, millions and millions of the cream of Indian manhood would be dead. Only 7 or 8 survived. The 5 Pandavas and 3 others survived out of these millions that were going to be in combat. And Krishna gave him the Bhagavad Gita. And at the end of the Gita, the next to the last sloka of the Gita, 700 verses, And then at the end of that, he gives him this verse. And he says, now I have given you my highest teaching. I have given you all my wisdom. I've given you the mysteries. Now think it over and do as you wish. In other words, free will. Yes? Free will? No.